Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Wisdom of the Soul, brought to you by the Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. My name's Michael Benner, and a special welcome to those of you who are with us live this morning. And of course, you can find a full video on YouTube at Ageless Wisdom Mystery School, and also as a podcast, though we do edit out the meditation and the Q&A. So the podcast runs about 30 minutes, and that's available wherever you get your podcasts. And that's a handy dandy thing too. Um, I think the benefit of the podcast is you can listen to it while you drive in the car, wherever you happen to be. So frankly, I don't why even mention it, but it's always struck me as curious. I might as well mention it. How preferable YouTube is to a podcast for most listeners, even though it's just a talking head, even though I'm just sitting here, I'm not dancing, I'm not doing TikTok. Um, there's no slides. Sometimes I'll share a screen, but not often. And yet people like to watch. I guess it's like Chauncey Gardner. Uh, we're going to talk today about really two different topics. Could be two distinct classes, but I'm going to put them together. And the two topics are duality, the nature of yin and yang, polarities, gender, and also impermanence. Because duality goes beyond, well, I'll say it this way: when we think of yin and yang in Chinese philosophy, it's usually described as light and dark, or sun and shade, and then gender, male and female. Those are the typical reference points for the polarities. You could think of the two poles of a bar magnet as well, the North Pole and South Pole of the bar magnet. And I'm sure you know the symbol of Taoism. It's like the black side and the white side separated not by a straight line, but by a sine wave, indicating the rising and falling of things, the ebb and flow. And then a dot of the opposite in each. And that's also significant because one thing we need to understand about the nature of dualism is it's never 100 0. It could be 99 1 at the most extreme, but one pole never eliminates the other. There's no point on the bar magnet, for example, or anywhere in the field around the bar magnet that is influenced only by one pole, positive and negative, so called. Every point is, whether on the bar magnet or in the field around it, influenced by both polarities, uh, the positive and negative, the yin and the yang. And so it bears on this frustration, at least for me, it's a major frustration, maybe for you too, of having to deal with people who are stuck in absolutes. Somebody jumped on me on Facebook this week, challenged me, said I was wrong. And I said, well, here's another way to look at it. I was trying to engender some degree of understanding with the guy. And he just came back at me, pedal to the metal. No, that renders your point mute and you're wrong. And I said, well, let's just say we disagree and avoid this binary absolutism of things having to be right or wrong. Life doesn't work that way. Rarely. I mean, there are occasions where true faults, either or, right or wrong, good or bad. Uh, I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago an example of that, like, hey, we're all going to the ballpark. Are you coming or staying? And so there are occasionally situations where an either or makes sense, but not often. It's usually shades of gray, or I like to say rainbows in between this and that. Stay off of the all or nothing. Uh, the more conservative, the more reactionary you are, the more fear based, the more reflexive, the more likely you are to see things as all or nothing, right or wrong, love it or leave it, my way or the highway, with no variations, no permutations or combinations, no 70-30, 60-40, 99-1, 51-49. I mean, that's reality. That's why in school we had multiple choice exams and fill in the blank and essay. And it would be ridiculous in school to limit ourselves to all true false exams. In fact, didn't you ever have a teacher that gave you a multiple choice exam and said, there's more than one right answer and you have to find the best right answer? That's the way the world works. Um, and yet, so many people, because of stress and anxiety, I really think that's what it is. That it's the amygdala, it's the fight or flight center that divides the world into all this and none of that, or all of that and none of this. Stay off those binary forms of thinking. Consider that, here's a radical idea. Consider that every position, every concept has some degree of truth to it. It may not be much, right? But some exception where it's true. That's a better position, anyway, than thinking that everything has to be jammed into an all or nothing, black or white kind of model. So that's what that Tao symbol, and it's thousands of years old, what that Taoism symbol indicates is the black and the white, first of all, is separated by a sine wave, not a straight line. That indicates the ebb and the flow, the coming and the going, the cycles and the seasons of things, the in breath and the out breath, right? That we're in constant flux. That's not exactly impermanence. It's a little different to say everything is changing, constant flux. And then the dot of the opposite in each. And then the whole thing, of course, is proscribed by a circle suggesting an ultimate unity. And that's part of the beauty of Taoism. It's all about balance and not resisting anything, going with the flow, going with the chi, going with the Tao, right? That's the way nature does things. Mimic nature, right? The water in the stream doesn't fight against the rock, it just gently separates, flows around the rock, rejoins on the other side. Think of all the frustration that we could avoid if we learned to flow like that river. That's some of what we're going to talk about today. And then also, how does impermanence fit in this? This is such an important philosophical concept, especially in the West, where there's little appreciation for it. The Eastern hemisphere of the world is much more aware of things being impermanent, but we're so high tech oriented and maybe better said materialistic and consumer oriented in the West that we buy stuff, we possess stuff, we own it, and we want it not to change. So there's enormous denial. I remember my mother saying to me repeatedly, Michael, if you take care of this, it'll last forever. Her motive, her intention, of course, was she wanted me to take care of stuff. We were on a budget. We didn't have a lot of superfluous stuff. Money was tight. So take care of this. You know, pick up your clothes and hang them on a hanger and whatever object it was, take care of it. It'll last forever. She, of course, was wrong, well intentioned, but wrong. Nothing lasts. Not objects, nor anything else. Thoughts don't last. Beliefs don't last. Feelings don't last. Feelings are particularly variable. I think we can say that thoughts tend to last longer than feelings. Thoughts fade, feelings fade, objects fade, life itself fades. We age and then we die. You may think, wow, that's an unpleasant concept to look at. Nothing lasts. Really, nothing lasts? Well, there is one thing that lasts. And this is really the point of our discussion today. And indeed, the whole point of this series is the one thing that does last is the truth of who we are, which is awareness. The I am behind the thoughts that continually change. What doesn't change? Your awareness of them, right? Now, the brain is a filter, so awareness varies unless you really put your attention on identifying as awareness. Some days you'll be more aware than other days of your surroundings, of your impact on other people, of your priorities, your values. Some days we're more aware, some days we're less aware. But that's because the brain filters awareness, it focuses awareness. It's part of the revelation we get with psychedelics, is it blows open that filter and awareness just streams in, and enormously enhanced awareness is perhaps the best way to describe the psychedelic experience. Your thoughts will become jumbled. Psychedelics mimic schizophrenia. You'll become insane, and you'll know you're insane. Your thoughts are all scrambled. Your emotions are all over the place. Your behavior is unpredictable and erratic. But the clarity, the awareness behind your thoughts and feelings and behavior, don't you see? It's that degree of how awake are you that is variable as a result of the brain. But it's fundamental. It's consciousness. And in the traditions in which we speak, the mystical, the perennial philosophy, this even quantum physics now, we're becoming increasingly clear with experiments like the double slit experiment or entanglement, that there is something that exists outside of time and space, something beyond time and space, something outside of the physical universe that somehow stands outside of time, that is, in other words, infinite and eternal, something that does last, that is permanent, infinite and eternal, unchanging. And that's awareness or consciousness, which in Abrahamic religion is called love and could also be described as meaning. This is where meaning is found. The meaning that you apply to your thoughts, the meaning that you apply to your feelings or your behavior. It's really important to begin to work with consciousness as awareness, as capital L love, as meaning. It's also esoterically, philosophically referred to as truth and wisdom. This is Christ consciousness. This is nirvana in Buddhism. This is heaven. And it's right here. In Christianity, it's the kingdom. The kingdom is within. Christ is very clear about that. Seek ye first the kingdom. What is the kingdom? It's the peace, it's the love, it's the happiness, it's the joy that stands behind this whole charade, this whole dream that we're having. So, as far as the physical, material world goes, everything is impermanent. There's only that one exception. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We'll explore that today. Let's do a little meditation. What do you say? Because in the mood. So if you close your eyes, consider consider the way the furniture supports you. I guess that's the best way to say it. In other words, become balanced and centered. You want to be sitting up straight and erect, but not rigid. So you're going to have to bring a sense of balance to your posture. Shoulders back, lift your chin a little bit, balance your head on your neck and shoulders. Let your shoulders relax and sit right above your hips. Whether you're in a chair with your feet flat on the floor, sitting cross-legged, whether you're on a meditation pillow, a bench, or a bed or a chair. Relax into the way the furniture supports you, or the way the floor supports you. And get a sense of being grounded or plugged in. Consider, how would a tree feel to be deeply rooted into the earth? See if you can imagine that feeling of being grounded, rooted, like a lightning rod plugged into the earth, open and receptive to the energy above you, for the purpose of bringing that energy, that spirit to earth through you. Grounded, connected, plugged in. Feels like you belong here. Like this is where you grow. Consider that by sensing yourself connected to the ground, yet open and receptive to the sky, that you're like a battery with two poles, or, as I said before, a bar magnet has a north pole and a south pole, a positive and a negative. Not that the negative is the bad end by any means. A yin and a yang. Consider that initially, for our purposes right here and right now, yin and yang is energy and mass, or spirit and matter. That each of us exists as a kind of a battery or a capacitor capable of being charged up revitalized, renewed, and restored by a connection to spirit and matter, sky and earth, energy and mass, as in E equals mc squared. So you're in the middle, you're that middle element. And just imagine yourself drinking in, gently absorbing or soaking up the vitality of whatever this life force is, this chi or ki, this prana or kundalini, this vivifying life force that illumines and animates us. Drink it in, soak it up, not through any effort, but in a very passive way by letting go and allowing. Become a path of least resistance. We let go of our resistance by releasing muscular tension. Feel that letting go in your body. Scan your body, slowly sweeping from the top of your head to the soles of your feet and back again, with a sense of letting go, and becoming open and receptive, even if only just in your imagination. And this energy feels peaceful and loving. It feels like contentment, increasingly as if everything is okay in your life. Can you imagine increasingly feeling like everything's just fine? What if it were? There's a wonderful saying in Confucianism. It was either Confucius or Lao Tzu, who said, "Nature never hurries, and yet always manages to get everything done right on time." Nature never hurries, but gets everything done right on time. Maybe we could let go of our frustration and irritation and desire for a problem-free life. Maybe we could replace it with a sense of being a better problem solver. And maybe allow ourselves to feel that we solve problems and heal our sadness and heartache with ever more elegance, with grace and equanimity. Consider the grace and eloquence or elegance, the elegance and grace of a dance well performed. The point of the dance is not to get somewhere. You don't have a goal when you dance. There's nothing to accomplish at the end. It's about the dance. Certainly, there's value in goal setting and knowing what you want and having a sense that you're moving toward it and making some progress in this area or that. But what's the hurry? I think it's because we would like to get to a place where there are no problems, where our to-do list is done, at least for a while. Then we could relax, yeah? Then we could be happy. Are you deferring happiness, contentment, peace of mind, simple joy until you accomplish something? Do you think without that drive, that continuous, perpetual go, 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 that uneasy feeling that you're never finished, you're never done, there's always something else. Damn, it's always something. Is that real? Does that need to be? Or is that self imposed? And maybe an illusion? Nature never hurries, and yet she gets everything done. Consider the way people drive on the freeway. Are they in a hurry to get somewhere, or are they running away? We always presume that they're moving forward in an effort to get where they're going. Consider that they're running away. That we, when we drive 80, 90 miles an hour on the freeway, zigging and zagging, or even in gridlock traffic, creeping along at 2 miles an hour, still looking for an opportunity to cut in and get ahead 5 feet, or rushing to the next red light, sitting there for 45 seconds, and then speeding down the street to the next red light. What's the hurry? Are we running out of time? I suspect we're just not aware of our desire for a problem-free life. And our acceptance of a belief system that problems are done to us, that they exist in the world, and life is a struggle to resolve these problems out there. Maybe what makes it a problem is not out there, but behind your eyes and between your ears. Who says that's a problem? You do. We do. We want something else. We don't like to accept reality, to acknowledge truth. But what if you knew? I mean, what if you really, really knew, or at least could remind yourself that everything has a season, a coming and a going, an ebb and a flow. It's like riding a bicycle. It's the up and down of your legs that make the pedals and the wheels go around and around. So even back and forth is really a cycle. The in breath and the out breath. If you simply turn your attention to watching your body breathe itself, that could seem like a back and forth. But it's really around and around, isn't it? We think of time as being on the line with sort of like a number line with the present moment right in the middle. And all the numbers off to the left is the past, and everything to the right is the future. Clocks are round. You know that joke? Even a broken clock is right twice a day. It'll come around. Everything comes around. This problem and that problem and this other problem over here, this sadness, this heartache, this feeling of being abandoned and lost and confused, that we struggle and struggle and struggle to resolve, ends up being resolved, and often we take credit for it. When if we had done virtually nothing other than be aware of it and watch it, it would have resolved itself anyway. Without all the torment, without all the suffering. Things have a way of working themselves out. I'm sure you've noticed. Just a matter of reminding yourself, oh yeah, most of what I've been afraid of, most of what I've feared in my life never happened. But there's this overriding program in our unconscious that says worry and fear is a way of being careful. That we have to anticipate the unanticipatable. We have to plan for disaster. How many different ways could my life fall apart? How many different ways could I be hurt, betrayed, conned, lied to, and cheated on? And then we carry muscular tension as armor and fill our minds with doubt and worry and anxiety as some sort of protection. And all we do is end up compounding the problem, which might have by now resolved itself of its own accord if we hadn't tried so hard to force things to fit into our sense of how they should be. What if you just let go and trusted your life? What if you just let go and trusted life? Is it possible that the universe knows what it's doing? A religious person would say God has a plan. It's all in God's hands. All right. Others are more comfortable with the absolute, the first cause, the prime mover, the creator, the source, life, the universe. Choose your noun. Whatever it is that's running the show beyond the individuated self, what if it knows what it's doing? Now, look again to nature. Does nature know what it's doing? Does nature ever make a mistake? Does, does the natural order of things, is it ever wrong? And if we have to strain to answer that question, to find some evidence that, yeah, nature screws up all the time. She doesn't know what she's doing. She makes mistakes. You could say evolution is a whole set of trial and error, but it's a pretty clever scheme. Let's try this mutation, this adaptation. Doesn't work? Okay, fades away, it dies, it doesn't reproduce. But if it finds a better way, then the leopard gets spots and it's camouflaged and survived, and the giraffe's neck grows longer to reach the leaves on those tall trees. And the flu finds a way to replicate itself and survive year after year. I think nature knows what it's doing. I think your life knows what it's doing. And within the boundaries of this, how shall I say, karmic constraints, yeah, we have free will, or it would appear we have free will, but we're still picking and choosing from what appears to be available. And so, who are we to consider that we know better than the universe what's in our interest? Maybe that problem is necessary. Maybe that grief and loss and heartache grows you, makes you more loving, and wakes you up. Maybe that catastrophic disease is giving you the opportunity to be a far better person with rewards, benefits we can scarcely imagine. Maybe, I'm just saying, maybe. You know, the old saw, the curse being a blessing in disguise, the cloud with a silver lining and such. When I lived in Hawaii, I heard no rain, no rainbows. Go with the flow. Account for flux and change. No one ever, what's that old saying? No one ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river and you are not the same person. One thing you can count on is change. Not just lateral change, growthful change, the coming and going, an ebb and a flow, the duality of the yin and the yang, the round and the round, the seasons, the cycles, the ebb and flow, just like the way you breathe. The rising and the falling. All things rise and fall. Get used to it. Flow with it, dance with it, anticipate it, but move with it gracefully. Don't fight it. Don't struggle. Remember the martial arts, the stupidity of Western men who square off attack and counterattack, attack and counterattack, counterattack and attack. The martial artist, whatever the discipline, is not going to oppose the aggressor, but simply redirect that momentum, that inertia, that energy into a harmless direction. They may even grab your jacket if you charge them, grab your jacket and pull you in the direction you're already moving, but with just a little bit of leverage, you're on your face. That's elegant. It's beautiful. It comes from the study of nature. It's the way the universe works. Feeling pretty good about that and understanding what I'm saying, reminding yourself to carry that into your waking state and ponder it in the next few days. Incorporate it into your life, learn what you can learn from it. You reorient yourself with an intention to return to wide awake. Take a few moments to feel a gentle rising up, as if in a hot air balloon drifting up toward the waking state. And now, eyes open, wide awake. Open your eyes now, wide awake, alert, rested, refreshed. Take a nice, big, slow, deep breath, inhaling and exhaling, and letting go again, letting go. Welcome back. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's our conditioning as consumers, first of all, that causes us to hold on and, like my mother used to say, take care of it. I have a story in my book about this, actually, how I had this old gas grill. This is back in the early or mid 80s. So 40 years ago, I had this old propane grill, and it was just getting grody, and it had seen its day and should have been thrown out. But I was just holding on to it. And one day I went out to light preheat the grill, light it up. And when I came back from the house, and this wave of depression came over me. It was like a dark cloud, just suddenly. I mean, just like that. I just felt this deep depression, as if there was something horrible going on in my life that I had somehow forgotten about. You know, like your job's going to be terminated in 2 weeks and you forgot. or you've been diagnosed as having some horrible terminal disease and somehow you managed to forget and now you're remembering. But there was nothing associated with it. It was just this dread, this deep depression just came over me. And I just thought it was so odd. It was such an unusual experience. I never felt anything like it. This sudden sinking into deep depression and despair as if life is hopeless. And all I did was light the barbecue and what the hell, right? Well, I knew I had 10 minutes or so before the barbecue was heated up enough that you can scrape it with a wire brush and get it all ready for its next mission. So I sat down in a chair and closed my eyes, and I pursued the darkness. I went into the cave. As scary as it was, I wanted to know. I was just really intrigued. What is this deep depression that's just come over me? And I didn't sit there for very long, just 2 or 3 minutes before my brain opened up and I had this revelation, this little mini epiphany. I heard my mother's voice saying, if you take care of it, it'll last forever. And I realized I was bummed out, completely out of proportion. It was no big deal. Still amazed at, you know, how dark and negative the feeling really was, given that it was just about the fact that on an unconscious level, I had recognized that this barbecue grill is getting grody and old and rusty, and I got to throw it away. And that somehow felt wrong to me because I had this indoctrination from childhood that you don't throw things away, that like a lot of people, this is something you can use. This is something that has value. And you have to hold on to it. It's not just my mother, it's just this whole consumer society that your happiness comes from buying stuff and owning stuff and possessing stuff. And I got a new car and I'm going to wash it every Saturday and wax it once a month and never let anybody use the ashtrays. I'm dating myself. There are no ashtrays. There are no ashtrays anymore. And then some idiot pushes a shopping cart into the side of your car and you're devastated. If we knew, if we lived in a place where we are aware and understand that nothing lasts, that everything is impermanent, that all things have their rising and their falling, their seasons. Everything is cyclic. It comes and it goes. Everything, every object, every material good, automobile, barbecue grill, your clothes, well, they're outdated by fashion before they're outdated in terms of not being wearable or truly worn out. But so too our thoughts, our belief systems, constantly in change. Sometimes we're so ambivalent, we argue with ourselves, we get so confused because this thought is busy replacing a previous thought, and then the one that comes in and replaces it doesn't last before there's a new way of thinking, and we get confused by that. Thoughts don't last, they're just beliefs. Our thinking is trendy for the most part. You say, oh no, I have certain values, I have certain ethics. There are some core principles that last. Okay. Virtues, I'll grant you that. But the virtue is not a thought. It's an intention. The thoughts will come and go. Feelings, oh my God, feelings. You don't like the way you feel? Stand by. Like the weather, it just won't last. It'll change. You say, well, Michael, what about chronic depression? Well, that's part of a belief system. That's part of uh, a set of behaviors that can be changed. In most cases, I guess there is some depression. The research seems to suggest there is some emotional depression that is a symptom of physical conditions, like certain thyroid problems, certain other medical conditions can, as a side effect or an epiphenomenon, generate feelings of depression and despair. But usually things like rumination, the cause of depression, rumination, turning these hopeless thoughts over and over in your mind. Why me? You know, poor, poor, pitiful me. Nobody loves me. I can't have what I want. Look at all these failures. We're busy gathering evidence, right? Selectively cherry picking all of the negative evidence to justify our failure, what we're calling failure. You're halfway up the ladder. You didn't fail, you just stopped. You gave up. There's no failure unless you give up. You just keep moving up the ladder. Maybe 2 steps forward, maybe a step or two back, but what's that old saying? Stand up, or no, fall down 7, stand up 8. Japanese proverb. Fall down 7, stand up 8. Get up. Take some responsibility. Are you self-sabotaging? Are you undercutting yourself? Are you setting negative goals because you find some safety in mediocrity or even the familiarity of suffering? Ah, my old friend, victimization. What a warm, cuddly feeling to be helpless and not to blame. Blame's got nothing to do with it. We're talking about responsibility here for our attitudes and our outlooks. Physically, nothing lasts. Get a whole new body for the most part, except for some nerve cells. Your body is replaced, made out of the food you've had to eat. You get a new body every 7 or 8 years for the most part. And it's aging, it's fading, life fades, then we die. At least the physical body dies. 40 plus years of meditation has proven to me, I can't prove to you on your behalf anything, but 40 plus years of meditation has proven to me that my awareness is eternal. Let me ask you this. You are not yourself in a dream, right? I mean, you feel like who you are in a dream. You have a sense of, air quotes here, self in a dream, but you're not the same person you are in the waking state. You don't live in the same place in the dream. You're in some strange place you've never been before. Maybe you've been there in a previous dream. Maybe it has some elements of your waking life, but usually it's an alien landscape, a strange location, different people, strange things going on. It's always, dreams are always so curious. I hope you're remembering your dreams. You should do a class soon on how to incubate and remember and understand your dreams. We've touched on it. Maybe I'll dedicate a class to that. But my point is, when you awaken in the morning and realize, oh, that was just a dream, do you mourn the loss of that character? Do you suffer grief when you find out, oh, I wasn't real. That's not real. It was just a dream. Oh, I'm so depressed. I'm so sad. It wasn't real. You might be disappointed if it was a really wonderful dream. You might be a little disappointed that you woke up, but you don't grieve the loss. Well, when the physical body dies, why would it be any different? Right? Now, that may not be proof of anything as far as you're concerned, and that's okay too. I'm just offering this for you to consider. Row your boat merrily, life is but a dream. We did a class called Life is But a Dream. You can check out on YouTube or in the podcast. Well, everything has its coming and going, and yet awareness, consciousness, love in the spiritual sense of the word, even meaning, is eternal and infinite. The truth of who you are. If you say to yourself in meditation, what remains that is not a thought or a feeling? Behind these thoughts and feelings, if I could but stop my thoughts for a moment. Actually, I'll tell you a way to do it. This is a very powerful technique. I got to give credit to Eckhart Tolle for this one. This is a great technique. It's important to be in meditation. It works actually in any level of mind, any state of consciousness, but it's especially powerful if you go into a meditative state. And then you say to yourself, watching your thoughts for a moment, if you practice Vipassana, watching your breathing, identifying as the observer, not the breather, then you can learn to watch your thoughts without being the thinker. These task unrelated, so-called intrusive, often highly negative, self-loathing thoughts that continue to petition you for attention, even in meditation, watch them unfold. Watch their impermanence. Watch the duality of the coming and the going of your thoughts. And then say to yourself, I wonder what thought will occur to me next. You may want to write this down, because this is something the ego nature, the persona nature, does not want you to learn how to do, because you'll expose it for the fraud that it is. So you may want to write this down. I wonder what thought will occur to me next. And your thinking will stall out. We've been practicing this in the Saturday Salon, and people are reporting some pretty amazing results. I wonder what thought will occur to me next. And bam, the thinking just stops. It's not unlike, it's a way of initiating that feeling you have when you try to remember tip of the tongue phenomena, and you go, oh, it was, geez, what was the name of that? Oh, I'm drawing a blank. Or you go into a room and you forget why you came into the room. Gee, what was it I came in here for? And your mind's just blank. All right, well, what remains? If you believe you are the thinker, if those thoughts are yours, and yes, some are willful and some are spontaneous, but if you still think you're your thoughts, then stop the thoughts with a tool or a technique like that and say, what remains? What doesn't have a coming and going? What is permanent, infinite, eternal? It's awareness. You say, well, when I'm asleep, I'm not aware. Yes, you are. You have dreams. There's evidence of being aware while you sleep. The alarm clock goes off. Who hears it? If you have no awareness, I mean, we call sleep unconscious, but it's not true. You're conscious when you're unconscious. That's true. You hear the alarm go off, right? So there's some level of awareness there. That's who you are. That's what transcends duality and impermanence. That's the I am. And let me close with this little seed thought for you to ponder. The I am that you experience when you do this work, the part that remains when you stall out your thinking or draw a blank, and you have no particular feeling, right? You're just sort of neutral and the feeling, and your eyes are closed and your body is still, and there's no sense of time and no urgency and no rush. The I am that remains, that is the truth of who you are, infinite and eternal, is the same I am that everybody else feels in that same situation. That's where we become one. The truth of who each of us are as individuals is one thing, one life, one mind, one heart, the sense of I am, the awareness, the consciousness behind it all. And it is non dual, it is non duality. The philosophy in Eastern wisdom traditions is called Advaita Vedanta. Advaita in Sanskrit means not to. Advaita, not to. It's unity, it's non duality, it's infinite, it's eternal. It's understandable, it's reachable. You can develop that consciousness, develop that awareness. See if you can make this Sunday morning class a regular, attend it as often as you can, and this stuff will begin to really sink in for you and impact your life in a powerful way. Okay. Isn't it ironic? Doesn't it occur to you that odd that all of your unhappiness is generated by your search for happiness in the world? I'll say that again, that all your unhappiness comes from the search for happiness in the world, trying to solve the problems that you think are done to you by the world, these externals, these other people and circumstances and events that are simply conditions that are rising and falling, like the waves on the ocean, rising and falling, coming and going like your breath, like the seasons, the cyclic nature of all things. Cyclic nature, like nature, it's natural. All right, let's do some Q&A. Melinda is our co-host as usual. If you simply want to raise your hand, use the reaction tab down at the bottom of your Zoom window there to raise your hand or wave at Melinda. That'll get her attention. Send her a chat message. Just say, I've got a question, I've got a comment. You could formulate it or just say, call on me. I have something I want to say. And let's open it up. Comments, questions. Let's talk about this for a little bit. Melinda?
Yes, Michael. Nobody's up with anything yet, but I'm sure somebody's about to come up with something.
Why don't you give us some feedback, your impressions? What stood out for you today?
Um, your talk on impermanence has helped me with some of the smaller frustrations that I used to really grapple with. I think you were talking about the how could I have, or why didn't I, or just all that sort of recrimination. And I had to take a kitchen redo project on, kind of a minor one over in San Diego. And a couple of things, things went pretty well, but nothing's ever quite firing on all cylinders. And I found myself more being able to see uh, the cycle of impermanence and not take things. For instance, I bought this sink and it was glued in right under mount, can't really change it. And it's probably not going to be very durable. And I would have been very upset about that in the past, just a lot of recriminations. Why didn't you do your research? And why couldn't you have seen that? And it was easier this time to just realize that, to see where it goes. And in the scheme of things, it's things just seem to fall into place better when I remember that everything does have that cycle to it. But the part I got a little stuck with today was talking about nature doesn't hurry, and kind of the perfection of nature. And help me out here with natural disasters that cause a lot of suffering for people, and just a lot of major change. And just going back, thinking about that big asteroid that wiped out, I guess, the dinosaurs, right? And how do I requite that with what you were talking about?
Well, why would it not fit with, why does it seem unnatural?
Why does it need to be requited? because because you had just said, help me out here, the cause of your suffering, the cause of my suffering is inside me looking for happiness. Maybe it's accepting life on life's terms, that I go here with you all the time, that there's the hard part too. And I guess it depends on my definition of suffering, but there are a lot of events out there, where there's illness, war, destruction, people lose their homes. And that part is just part of life, as opposed to something that someone could frame differently with a different outlook.
Let me go to Hindu philosophy for a minute. There are deities in Hinduism named Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Um, these represent the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. Now, destroyer is a strong word. I think it might be better to refer to the dissolver. But destruction or dissolving is necessary to creation. It's part of the cycle of the yin and the yang, the apparent duality of the coming and going, impermanence, the rising and the falling, the flux. There has to be some destruction in order for there to be creation. There has to be fall and winter in order for there to be the coming of spring and summer. It completes the circle. Well, you say the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. That's a pretty big event. That may not look like a cycle, but in the larger scheme of things, that's how the universe works, the material universe. It, in order for there to be a coming and a going in a cyclic nature, there has to be a rising and a falling. There has to be shadow as well as light. Light is meaningless without shadow. Ask a photographer, ask a painter, ask a lighting technician. If everything is full of light and there are no shadows, it's very difficult to see anything. There's really no beauty. Um, you often hear people say things like, if it weren't for the darkness of night, you'd never see the stars, the beauty of the stars, or diamonds look best on a black background. So why does there have to be sadness? So that you can know joy. See, if your life was always happy and always filled with, the rose garden, always fun, it wouldn't be that fun. You wouldn't appreciate it. There needs to be the contrast. It's just the way life in the material world works. The rising and falling, the coming and going. You're saying, why does there have to be this side of the cycle?
Really what I wondered is, isn't there pain and suffering that go with that inevitability of the destruction?
Yes, I get what you're saying. Yes, but how do you manage that? There is a quality of contentment and acceptance that allows you to suffer well. It allows you to have a certain degree of happiness despite the suffering because you know it will end. And you know it's part of a cycle that take physical health. A lot of what we call pain and suffering are symptoms of the body healing itself. They're also clues we can use, very valuable clues. My God, you're a physician, and look who I'm lecturing here. You know this better than anybody. How to use symptoms of illness, disease, and injury to learn more about the condition and how to treat it, how to reinforce or enhance the natural healing process, whether it's physical health or emotional health, the process is the same. Physical pain and emotional pain are clues, cues. Um, they provide insight into the condition. So instead of wish it away or gird our loins against it and resist it or try to hold it at bay, we need to fall into it, move into the symptom. What can I learn from my sadness? What can I learn from my physical pain? What can I learn from life's challenges? Why is this? I hesitate to say why is this happening to me? Because we don't want to we don't want to fall into a cycle of rumination. You called it recrimination. That works too. But rumination is a reference to a cow chewing its cud, swallowing, bringing it up again, chewing the cud again and again. That's what we do with our negative thinking. Why me? Why does this keep happening to me? What am I supposed? Life isn't fair. This is not right. I'm a good person. This should not happen to me. So we fight and we struggle with the inevitability of the downside, the backside. The friend of mine wrote a book called The Sun at Midnight. It didn't disappear. It's coming back. It's just visiting our neighbors on the other side of the earth. The darkness is an illusion. It's just part of the cycle of the earth spinning on its axis. So, yes, I'm not denying that there is suffering. It's the first noble truth in Buddhism. Life is suffering. It's Christ on the cross. life is suffering, but you'll be born again. Whether you believe in Christian idea of uh, Christ being resurrected in his physical body, or whether you just figure, well, he must have survived the crucifixion. He takes 3 days to die on the cross. Christ was up there for a few hours. It's likely he survived, but the allegory is the same. You know? Suffering is part of life. There's no question. So all we can do is suffer well, knowing it'll pass. And what can I learn from this deprivation? What can I learn to accelerate, to manage the pain and accelerate the healing?
Talking about knowing it'll pass, I guess driving back from San Diego and thinking how vulnerable I was being so tired in that car, and the little crosses along the highway where people lost their battle with the road. There's several. And it reminds me of Eddie Barkin. We were talking about him, I believe, last week, 37-year-old lawyer that was diagnosed with ALS. And that is a disease of immense suffering. It's, you watch your body functions drop off one by one, and finally it just takes you. And I mean, I guess if a person doesn't have any sense of the bigger scheme, if they feel that this is all there is, it would be pretty hard to live that life well. But I wished I could have sat in the room with him. He has done a lot of talks, so I need to listen to some of those. Sat in the room with him and maybe impart some wisdom in how you stare this beast right in the face and get up every day like he did and advocate for others. Down, he was on a ventilator in his wheelchair, down to his last little heartbeat. That I guess I would love to move towards that.
The real
You know,
challenge, Belinda.
he knew his end was coming. It was
Yeah.
incontrovertible, and
Well,
yet he didn't crawl under the covers.
yeah, but we all do. We all know the end is coming.
Yeah.
The challenge is to know that it's not the end. It's the end of physical existence. But energy can't be created or destroyed. That's not debatable. If consciousness is an energy, and it's clearly not matter, and even if it were, it'd ultimately be energy. Everything is energy. Consciousness is energy. It can't be destroyed. Only the physical, which is a manifestation of that energy.
My mom took literally that she thought she would see her dad again, and I know that really comforted her. But if you don't mind me asking, do you have a depiction in your mind where you go that comforts you? I mean, like, for instance, are you and Doreen going to be spirit energy together? Or
Yeah, it's a great question. I love this kind of stuff. Um,
I'm sorry.
think of someone you love. Do they need to be beside you, holding your hand for you to feel that love?
No.
So, with your eyes closed, the person you love could be 1,000 miles away or deceased, and the love is still present. So, on death, will you, quote, see? Here's air quotes again. Will you see your relatives? Not with physical eyes, for they do not have physical bodies. Will you feel them? Yes. Will you experience their presence? I can experience the presence of my friends who have passed over simply by closing my eyes and bringing them to mind. Do I wish they were here in the physical? Yeah. I'd like a handshake, a hug, some conversation, cup of coffee, a beer with them, talk a story. Can't do that. But the love of that individual, their personality, I can hear their laughter. Everyone has a unique laugh. Yeah, you'll have that in spades, on steroids, big time. There's no separation. It's just, if it's a universe, it's one thing. We're talking today non-duality. There is no duality except as expressed in form. So yeah, you'll have that.
Well, Rosemary has something to add, and thank you. That was very helpful.
Sure.
Yes. Um, have I mentioned this hummingbird that comes outside my kitchen window that I feel is my husband? His name is Flitterdactyl.
You did to me. I'm not sure if it was privately or in this class, but yes.
I think it was probably privately. And he may be a different hummingbird in a different form that's still there now, 4 years later. But and I think it's the same hummingbird. So if I think it's the same hummingbird, it is,
Sure,
right?
sure.
And I'm sure that it is Al, my husband. And I see it every day unless it migrates, because over 4 years, every year, it migrates to wherever it goes. It could be Canada to get cooler. I don't know, but it's gone 2 months or so. And then it's back, and it's the most extraordinary, one of the most extraordinary things that's happened to me. And I've got pictures that Al took when he was alive. I saw this hummingbird born in a little nest in the other side of my townhouse in a tree. That old nest is still there withering away. That might be symbolic of something. And so I saw it and its sister be born. And then after Al died, it appeared, and it always seemed to come when I was most miserable.
Mm.
So I know it's got a consciousness. It'll sometimes come right up to the window and look at me. Why would it do that? Unless it was trying to make some, I think, comforting thing. So I wanted to tell you all about that because I think it symbolizes exactly what Michael's talking about.
Indeed, if you look up in most dream dictionaries the symbol of birds, what does a bird mean in my dream? It'll say spirit. And the reason birds, to many people, represent spirit is that they fly. You see, spirit is not earthbound.
Oh,
And uh, butterflies also. Birds and butterflies represent spirit to a lot of people. Um, my brother tells the story of being on a pilgrimage in northern Spain. I forget what that's called. It's a famous,
yes, Santiago.
yeah, that one, the walk. And he was walking with some Spanish friends of his who had just lost a son in a skiing accident weeks earlier. They almost called off the walk, but then they decided, well, this is a spiritual pilgrimage. Maybe this is a good idea.
Mm.
But my brother was telling me that every time this tragedy came to mind in this walk, meaning you have all day, day after day after day, with very little stimulus other than the beauty of the countryside and the mountains. Every time this thought about having lost his friend in the skiing accident came to mind, he'd be surrounded by these little blue butterflies, and
Mm.
then they would go away. And he said, the first couple of times it happened, he just sort of wrote it off. But then it just kept happening. And I've had some butterfly encounters when I was backpacking that were quite extraordinary. Butterflies that would come to me in the wilderness. And I don't know, there's something about birds and butterflies. And I'll just leave it at that. They're common dream symbols and as an archetype as a symbol, they usually refer to some spiritual existence, a spiritual entity, not just random energy, but a soul, so to speak. A soul. Maybe that's the best way to describe it. So, um, and what harm does it do? I mean, if you ever get in a bad mood one day and think, well, I'm just making this up, this is stupid. You know, Al's not a hummingbird. There was hummingbirds here before. Al took pictures of hummingbirds. I mean, if it gives you comfort, if it resonates in your heart, Rose, so be it. If it gives you some happiness and peace and contentment and joy, why deny it? Trust your intuition. Trust
Yeah.
life.
The idea of soul, I think, is marvelous, that they represent souls.
Right.
Al was an aviator, so there's a reason to think that those two have combined.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And there, I do have a butterfly on my front patio, orange, incredibly big, that also seems to disappear and then come again. How do we know it's the same one? Because it's the same orange and black. They all look exactly the same, whereas hummingbirds look, they can have different colors. But this butterfly, I've no sense that that's owl or that it's a soul or anything, nothing. And if I look the other way to the south through the kitchen window, there's soul all through there now, because there's the flitting that goes on, and then they have wars where they fight another hummingbird that would want to come to the feeder.
Oh, yeah, they can be pugnacious for sure, you know.
Yeah, but they've caught the imagine of everyone. It seems that they've multiplied while other species are dying. Hummingbirds have gotten more and more and more a presence in our life,
Really.
which is very cheering. It makes you feel
Jeez.
cheerful.
Doreen had me watch a Robert Redford movie last night, The Great Waldo Pepper. Uh, one of the things I did like about it was the discovery of flight in what appears to be like the 1920s, and these barnstorming pilots and their biplanes who flew just for the ecstasy of it. And also Richard Bach's books, whether it's Jonathan Livingston Seagull or my favorite Richard Bach book, Illusions, is all about barnstorming pilots who they're like motorcycle gangs, only instead of motorcycles, they fly airplanes all day just for the fun of it, land in a farmer's field, camp out, sell rides the next morning, make a little bit of gas money, and then go off flying around, uh, so-called barnstorming. And everybody wants to fly, to watch a bird or a butterfly or an insect, and to think about, gosh, what would it be like to fly? I think that it has spiritual overtones. I think that's the soul saying, you won't always be earthbound. Actually, if you practice dream incubation and lucid dreaming, you will come to notice soon enough that in your dreams you do not have feet. And if you ever have a lucid dream and wonder, is this real or am I dreaming? Look down. If you have feet, you're awake. and, that's why ghosts are often stereotypically portrayed as just, this sheet, like Casper the Friendly. Um, Yeah, spirit don't we don't have feet. Or if in a dream you go downstairs, you float down the stairs. You don't boom, 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 walk down the stairs in the dream. You just float. And I think it's that knowledge of self uh, outside of a physical body, that eternal nature, that includes this longing to fly, to float like a butterfly. Okay, thank you, Rose. Thank you, Melinda. Thank
Thank you.
everyone for being here today. Again, michaelbenner.com is my website. If you're interested in the salon, I have an opening on Saturday. It's tuition based, but very affordable and limited to 10 people. A powerful study group, intermediate to advanced. Wonderful people in this group. I have, I think, 2 openings actually for the Saturday salon. And you'll find out information there at michaelbenner.com, and my private intensives for individual work or couples counseling. That's all on michaelbenner.com. Check it out. The audio podcast, the book, Fearless Intelligence. Subscribe to YouTube. Give us a review if you can, a comment, a review on the podcast, review on the book and Amazon. All of that stuff helps drive visibility and keyword searches, so we really appreciate that. Have a wonderful week. See you next Sunday. Please unmute and say thank you and goodbye to your friends. Have a happy, happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next Sunday. Namaste. Aloha. Salam.
Thanks, everybody.
Aloha, and thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a happy
Thanks,
Thanksgiving.
bye. Bye.